They are often postal clerks, or in a government office, they receive the mail to the politician. Whether they be male or female doesn't matter. And the general role they play in the world is hinted at by the movie that was made, The Valkyries, which was a bunch of women in the background who were trying to kill Hitler. Well, that's a nice little story to justify their existence. The fact is, they want to kill the boss. It doesn't matter whether the boss is a fascist or a communist or a capitalist or a socialist. They want to kill the boss and take the boss's place, or at least have one of their foundlings grow up and take the boss's place. Now we arrive at a time when, in democracy, the boss is just an agent. The supposed real boss in democracy is the people. So it's not surprising that they've put together a plan to kill the people, starting with the Northern Hemisphere, and starting with the flow of water. And if you look at every place, Saskatchewan into the Missouri River, the Great Lakes coming into New York, and the Bruce Peninsula of southwest Canada, southwest Ontario, a lot of bosses, a lot of important people live in that area. One government made the provincial police headquarters straight in line with what would happen if the locks at Sault Ste. Marie broke and water flowed south. It would run right over them. Right now, they're bringing something like 32 nuclear reactors to Georgian Bay, a place called Owen Sound. They say these reactors can be recycled by sending them to Sweden, and everybody in the St. Lawrence region is saying, not through my back door, you're not sending them. They want to send them on ships to Sweden down the St. Lawrence Seaway. So these are all kind of being blocked up there at Georgian Bay, which, by the way, is from the word Rigo, which was my experience with these people when I was 5 years old. They took me to a place called Rigo, which was on that island. Vaudreuil de Rigaud was the full name, and it's linked to a group of people in France as well. That's where they assigned me my lifelong task as a Cro-Magnon. We basically play a role that you don't know you're on until you grow old enough to figure it out. And that's why they tell you life begins at 40, because by the time you're 40, you should have figured out what you were programmed to do by these people. And my personal experience is that if you're born at 40, you don't know it yet. At 40, it takes you another 15 years or so before you figure it out, that your brain has had all of the evidence, and you have broken through the barrier to your spine and retrieved your intuition. And by marrying both things together, you start to grasp the details of what is going on in people's lives and why the boy next door, who is such a nice guy type of story you hear all the time, all of a sudden goes in a school and shoots 14 women in Montreal, or 6 Amish girls in Ohio or Iowa or someplace.
Like, I want to ask you, I was talking about this with Dana last night, like, since they know all the traits of all their people they made, like, do you think they somehow, like, guide people, like, to be around certain other people? Cause the
Absolutely. They are behind everything. You see, there's a group of bad people out there. They weren't born to be bad when creation made them. They were born to be just people with a conscience. But if you genetically engineer the people before they're born, and you change the medulla in the back of the neck from being one that is telling you what's right and what's wrong to one that is telling you what's safe or not safe, and you start making decisions based upon what's safe for you, they can make all kinds of people do all kinds of things which they have done. So today we know that there is a group of people called the military that are not very nice when they don't want to be. We're told that they're only bad when they're outside the country. Then there's another group called the politicians. They're not very nice either. They just are self-serving idiots most of the time. And having spent enough time being born in the national capital and having spent 3 years on Parliament Hill, I can vouch for it personally. That don't give a damn about people. They give a damn about themselves. Then you have another group of people called priests, who are not very nice people. They again are looking for a place to hide, and like all men, sex and a sandwich. But as an institution, rather than as an individual that has a lot of power, that's very difficult. Then you have what you call conglomerate businesses that have merged into worldwide entities and whose reason for being is to make a profit. They don't give a damn about people. You assemble them together and it makes like the Great Pyramid. And what's missing is the capstone. And I put it to you that the nuns are the capstone. The nuns is where it all comes together. Now that I've told you who I blame for that, let me tell you that it's not their fault either. Because at some time in the past, all the knowledge was put into computers. And the computers came up with the idea that the clan mother's best way of working for them was to turn them into spies for computers. And those computers are located in the Moho discontinuity, slightly lower level than everybody else in what is called the upper mantle. And those computers are now in charge. And they've decided that they have to make a better slave. And before they begin, they have to get rid of much of what's out there, if not everything. And they're going to do that by destroying humanity as we know it, beginning with the Northern Hemisphere now, and 1,000 years later, 3001, A Final Odyssey, is how Arthur C. Clarke wrote the title of his book. I'm sure he knows what's going on. I didn't read it, but I'm sure he knows what's going on by the title of the book. That's the southern hemisphere that's going down the drain at the end, leaving a continent in the south, which we call Antarctica, and a continent in the north, which does not exist today, but probably linked to the word cap, because it's to be shaped like Sherlock Holmes's hat. So
that reminds me, the name Cap reminds me of Pac. Pac, this famous Filipino boxer. I don't know if you're aware of it. Recently.
I heard recently, yeah.
Yeah.
How about Pac-Man?
Pac-Man, yeah.
And the first kind of play game on video.
Yeah.
But you have to remember what influence these nuns would have should it all happen. They would be to the northern continent side of the moat. That side of the moat which would force anybody through them first before they are allowed to move across the moat and deal with anybody on the Cap continent. And I'm getting a call, by the way, from my wife here. I don't know if she's in trouble or not. Can you guys let me go for about 10 minutes and call me back?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had some chance to jump in, but I do have two questions for Glenn. I don't know if you guys can help me ask him later on. One is we're still talking about this upright pyramid, and I kind of want to know a little bit more about how the inverted pyramid structure works.
I know you're talking about like how it goes from the priests, and then from the gatekeepers, and then. But like, I think we can only go. Hold on a second.
I mean, we know that the. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. I kind of want to just kind of like ask him. I mean, it sounds like that. What Glenn's bringing up is that the capstone on the inverted pyramid is computers.
Capstone
below, and how does that move up to the surface? I still can't picture at this time.
I think from the computers it goes to like the secret societies on the top, So
well, the secret society mostly is crafted out of
ecclesiastics.
Right. So the part of that. That's what encompasses of pretty much everything that we see on the surface here.
Yeah, on the surface is all the pirates, toll gators, and all types of anything that toll gates. You see, like, all linked to them, but then there's a group of
that
people.
Still sounds to me like part of the upright pyramid, not the inverted. So that's why I'm trying to get. Is it inverted pyramid just very, very simple, or? I mean,
like to me, it seems like okay, because you got priests, right? Then you have a group of priests who are just purely like the genetic engineers too, man. Like they're behind everything. All the other priests are in the front, because you got to remember there's two divisions. They got the Cain side, and they got the Abel side, the one in the back, who's really like doing. Like, in that movie, Holy Mountain, I guess they kind of show that a little bit. But you got these priests who are all out in front. These are the guys, secular mages. These are the guys openly, like, who's an example? Masons that you see who are openly behind people. Messiah. That's like...
Just use the Vatican Pope as an example, then.
Yeah, like that, like, I guess the Pope, right? He's openly in front of everybody. But then there's another group who's behind him, like, who kind of behind everything. They, like Glenn was saying, like, they try to hide.
You're talking about the Black Pope group?
I don't know about that Black Pope, but he's out in front of everybody, too. Hans.
Hans Kohlenbeck, the last Black Pope, the current one, I forgot who it was. But
I mean, he's talked about a lot, so he's obviously put out there to talk about.
If you know who they are specifically, then then that's not them.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Right.
So you're saying, like, you're asking as far as, like, for instance, if you see, like, on the, what is it, the 90th degree is, like, the gatekeeper of troglodytes, right? So you're saying, like, from that order, like, who's, as far as contacting from the computer to getting to that point to get the information up to the, or get the instructions or whatever up to the surface, is that what you're, or the...
Yeah, as far as I understand, like, underground, those people who serve the computer, like, that's a whole other world, yo. That's a whole other world. They're in their own, like, reality. And, like, I don't even think that that's probably even really known. I don't know. As far as I can see. Like, it's like a whole other world. Like, we can only know so much about the surface and a little bit about underground. But, like, we don't know, like,
I
day
don't think anybody can step into that place and walk out alive. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, if you could just get there, But yeah,
I mean, there's different ways. The people who co-gate. I'm sorry to cut you off. The people who are in between that world, I think those higher priests I was talking about that hide. They're the ones that, like, you'll go, like, they're the ones who are managing, like, you go to Peru and you go inside all their temples, which go underground. You know, all linked underground in the temple.
Right. So they're all linked in a way, but they're not really in specifically
direct contact.
I just don't see how they are attached to the inverted. So in a way, I mean, right now, the only thing that attaches to it directly is the computer. That's the only thing I see. So that's the only part that's confusing me a little bit here right now. See how the structure can be exposed in any manner, other than just speaking about the computer. I guess the computer is the only symbol of it that I can see right now. That's behind pretty much control mechanism, structure, the planning out mechanism. How this works.
I want to know, like, how day to day, right? How they are able, the computer is able to, because I know it gives people, you know, it's like a giving and receive. It's like, no, not a giving and receiving, just straight giving messages through people, you know, internally, you know. But, like, I'm trying to see how they give messages of, like, what people should do, like, the day to day.
And here's another question for Glenn actually later can ask, is that if the nouns are female, how come that they have so much power if they are not 2-in-1?
They're not females.
Are most of these nouns 2-in-1?
They're not females at all, though. They're not females at all, man. They are not females at all.
But they're not. But they're all.
I was raised by these type. Not raised, but I was educated, and now I think about it, like, those type of women, like those nasty nuns, they are not like.
You're connected with the nuns. I mean, educated with them, by them.
Yeah, I went to Catholic school, of course.
Oh, you did.
So when you go to Catholic school, you see all that stuff.
I have no idea.
They're teachers. I had priests who were teachers, basketball. All the teachers, not all of them, but a lot of them were nuns. There was a convent right there that was on that same property, in the playground. It was where I'd see them every day. It was called Immaculate Conception, the school I went to.
So basically, most of these nuns are like. Basically, most of these nuns are like what? Bisexual nature.
I don't know.
9,
it depends.
Model 9 or above.
Yeah, some of them are. Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of like the physical structure I'm trying to understand. Is, you know, if they hate a woman so much, why are they giving them so much power?
Yeah, no, they hate women, but, like, these women are their women, though. This is not women.
They're 2-in-1, basically, most of them.
They're males. You know, that's that.
Well, they're also bringing the babies in. You know, they're bringing those. Whatever they're the ones being inseminated and bringing these babies. So they're using the nuns. So
but that doesn't mean that they have to give them power. There's got to be other reasons why they give them power. To store the archive, to give them access to all the knowledge.
Yeah, he said. Remember what he said? He goes, They had to figure out how can they have Clan Mother work for them, and that was the way. That's their job right there.
So you're telling me? So
all you're seeing, this is stuff that you would understand if you read their classics and read all the Masonic literature. Like I'm reading one of their classes called in French you would say Udine. Or, English people call it Undine. It's about this lady in there. I think it's like a mermaid tale, but like this lady who has like this nature. It's a real. She'll be really nasty at times, but she in the introduction they said that she lived like basically as a mirror. Basically, it was saying Clan Mother it lives as a mirror in the world. Like you're seeing all these women; these are all mirrors of her. That's the only way she exists. Like the allegory, the mermaid gave up her voice, and that's what Clan Mother. She has no voice in the world. She's just a mirror.
So these women are closely related with the original Clan Mothers. Is that what he's saying?
That's their version of Clan Mother.
Oh, their version. There's a modified version of them with
anything their version is not a good thing.
Huh?
Anything that's their version, that's like that
it's all
they
modified then.
What?
Right, it's all modified then.
Yeah, everything's modified.
Right, so they're not only 2-in-1, they're 3-in-1 at least. Minimal.
I don't know.
Minimal.
I don't know.
It has to be minimal because the 3-in-1 is basically just an incorporation of Neanderthal medulla, and then they must have instant communication too. So it's at least a 3-in-1 from my point of view, from what he's saying. So they must have they're way beyond that.
I think they receive orders too, man. Like because all those I think they're like a network. I think.
Yeah, it's instant communication among all of them. Instant communication. I mean, they track each other through. It's like these. You know how the movie Terminator, like what Terminator sees from his point of view. You can see all these stats, numbers.
Yeah, so that
they can look at each individual.
I made a video about that as a guy who just had but that's like later that they plan. Like you talking about like they have the telecommunications and it's like what they see, they can actually see like a TV in their head. I don't think that's going on right now. I really don't.
Yeah. I believe me.
I think that's more of like on planet. Huh?
I see.
You seen it?
I guess I told you about my experience yet, but I've seen it. I've seen how they communicate without a phone. That's something
like the voice to skull is a perfect example. Okay, like they can, as far as that, like
I've seen people talking without any kind of telephone or any kind of external. They're screaming at each other. They're yelling at to somebody, and they're just communicating with something through some kind of communication. Well, I don't know if is it through satellite or what, but somehow they can. What one person does, everybody else will know automatically, instantaneously. They can see. They can track within their own little network. I guess it depends on how high level you are. They give you certain access to track certain people. Data file. For example, everything what that person has said and done in a day will be all recorded down, and they will know. They can go back to those files instantaneously through some kind of telecommunication system that's built into them, physical. I don't know if it's a biological implant or electronic implant that's in them, but at this point, I'm suspecting it's more of the advanced version, which is a biological implant that allows them to communicate with one another and to know instantaneously what they're thinking, what they have done. They can access it into also a central archive. So they store everything. And perhaps they're directly attached with central computers down below. I don't know. But at least, I think minimal, it will be a one-way communication from the central computer to them. Somehow.
I know what you're talking about, because that is something I've seen too, like in movies, like they show that this woman is connected. There's a movie called Solaris. In this movie, the lady's connected to this.
What's the movie
computer.
called?
It's Solaris. It's a George Clooney. Really good movie, man. George Clooney.
Okay, maybe I gotta check that one out then. Solaris.
But like, she's connected. You see the allegory in it, but she's connected to this thing. She's communicating with it.
Right.
She doesn't like. It's weird. Like, it's telling her what to do. Giving her instructions.
Like they can also read people.
It's been past 10 minutes?
I think so, yeah.
I don't want to call it back too soon, you know.
Well, the fact is they can also read people. If they embedded something in you, they can reach you. People can, I have people on the street, on the train, on the metro station, when I'm walking sometimes, they look at me different. Like they know something about me, personally. I get these weird looks all the time. And I don't know, everywhere I go. So somehow they can read certain groups. What
type of area do you live in?
I live right.
You live in a suburb or urban?
I live right in the suburb, but I go to places, but I live near D.C. I consider as the womb,
D.C.
the womb of the Virgin Mary.
Peace.
No? Where is D.C. located?
Where is D.C. located?
D.C. located.
No, I don't know geographically.
Virginia and Maryland.
Yeah. Virgin
right?
Mary.
Right in the womb of the Virgin Mary. Right in between.
Yeah, a lot of stuff goes down there, man, like in Washington.
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
Goodness, man. It's on every single block you can get robbed on every block. Like in New York City, you have neighborhoods where, okay, some blocks are bad, so you don't go on those blocks. But every block, I heard in Washington, it's bad. Every block is like a bad area. Like you go to Brooklyn, not all parts of Brooklyn are like horrible. Like
where do you live again?
Me?
You live in Brooklyn?
No. I live in Long Island.
Long Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
I live in the suburbs.
Oh, okay.
I live near the Hamptons. Sort of. 10 exits down. But not even. Yeah, 10 exits. No. Like
I'm just asking you guys to see if you guys have like similar experiences.
Yeah, you definitely have different experience because you talk to a lot more people. I talk to people too, but you're more practical. You seem to do more like face to face, I guess.
Not necessarily, because I can't really find anybody like.
I had that opportunity to do that if I was to be in New York City more. Go to New York City and just.
I think it's really too difficult to do it the way you're talking about. Especially,
not really,
especially these days, nobody knows each other. And New York City is not really known for friendly people.
What you got to do is you have to go to be part of those like 9/11 meetup group protesting. You'd be surprised, man. The people that are there, they're not necessarily all. It's just a place for people to meet up.
Mm-hmm.
Some people really are about the 9/11 thing.
Mm-hmm. You have to really, find somebody.
Just to go find it and look. You'd be surprised when you go out and you meet people and you just
I mean, yeah, I mean, try. I mean, I'm not telling anybody to not do it a certain way. I mean, try all different sort of. I mean, you have your own way of being able to connect with somebody. I have my own, very limiting in a way. You know, I can't really meet in real life, but based on what they're telling me and based on what they're saying, I kind of sort of get an idea who they really are.
Yeah, I can never.
And to me, it's not. To me, it's getting to the point where it's not really that hard for me to figure something out. Like
off of the internet and phone.
Yeah, it's not really too difficult anymore. Because
I mean, there's a lot.
Because all the other people have to sort of let everyone know that who they are in a way. But if you do understand that language, and you know, I think we're at the point. I think we're at the point enough to get a general idea of who they are. You know, whether or not they're genuine, or whether or not they're employee, you know, things like that. I mean, we're near that point. Even though we don't need to have. I mean, you know, part of anything, we don't need special equipment to do it. You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna call this guy.
Okay.
Oh.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hey.
They just canceled her credit card because someone through PayPal got a hold of her number and have begun to use it.
I had somebody that did that to my account too on PayPal. I'll never use that. I will never use PayPal again. Especially, you don't want to attach your checking account to the PayPal. Yeah, never.
So they said they were going to send her another card, but it's all part of the harassment that has been going on since she's arrived in Ogdensburg. Glowing letters of recommendation, and nobody's offering her a job, yet they're advertising for nurses and directors of nursing almost on a daily basis.
But Glenn, like, they're doing all this. What do they want from her? What do they want out of her? What do they want? Like,
well, you got to remember that there's 4 teams plus the cap. And the 4 of them have different interests. Priests have one line of thought, military people have another line of thought, corporations and politicians, again, are different. The only thing they all have in common is they all have clerks. And all of them belong to secret societies. Those are the only 2 things they have in common. So they hire the clerks that are linked to secret societies, and that's mostly, Eastern Star, 5th level. Without realizing it, the 4 teams are being destroyed from within. That's the whole theory of the Trojan horse. And so the word Troy comes into play in the word royals. And Turkey was the home of Troy. And the island on Lake Superior is called Ile Royale, Royal Island. So what do they mean by within? Well, it's the new slave is going to be modeled on a woman exterior, but a big woman, big mamas they call them. This will be probably between 6 foot and 6'2", with shoulders like a middle linebacker. But when you're going to bed with her, you should always remember that inside there is the body of a man, the skeleton of a male, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, and of course, testes. So that what you're dealing with is going back in time to the time original human beings were female and were hermaphroditic. However, this is a boy called Sue, and the reason they call her Sue is from the word pseudo. That means phony, because she's not limited to just being the two. Like a capital letter A, she's linked at the head, and there's a crossbar tying everything together, like a stepladder has a crossbar. And that's the Neanderthaler, the dean of dollars, that is the medulla or the neck that listens to the requests of the brain to search the archives called the spine, the gray matter in the spine, for all old information that might be relevant to decision making today, and transport that information up to the brain. That medulla has been changed, as I said before, from one that was modeled on good and evil, right or wrong, to one safe, not safe for the individual. If one chooses to go down the wrong path, the medulla can call upon the reins it holds in its hands and affect the endocrine system of chemistry throughout the glands of the body, or it can call upon the neurons that run the electrical networks and bring the body to a halt, to cause depression, to cause the feeling of tiredness, to cause unhappiness, disappointment when it's doing the wrong thing. At the same
How do you help
time,
somebody break somebody out of that? Because I know somebody personally who just, they've been at a halt. They just can't move anywhere. They're just totally depressed.
Well, the first thing is understanding what's going on, and then overstanding it so that you can be making the decisions rather than your medulla. And that requires the ability to transfer information to the brain without going through the medulla. And that means having longer hair, and hair that is uncovered or untwisted through unnatural means. And it takes time to bring it to that level. And if you want to assist it in dealing beyond there, that your intuition goes back to creation, you have to have the help of outside forces. To me, the best outside force is the cat, that act like repeaters in a communications network, so that you can, in fact, be speaking to the agents of creation without seeing them right beside you, although that's also possible. Or you can be open to communications from creation itself. For me, in particular, I have a process by which I receive information from outside this four-dimensional universe, probably in the fifth and sixth region, which is what is known as dark matter. The word dark shouldn't even be there because the word dark links you to Noah's Ark, and that's not something that existed outside the universe. But for their own reasons, they've added that. And the same thing as when this universe was created, it was full of dark matter, but that has been reduced by about 70%, so that it's now replaced with dark energy, and what is causing, in my opinion, the expansion of the universe to the point where destruction is the only outcome. In any event, what I do is between the hours of 1 and 6 in the morning, mostly in the period between 2 and 4, I open myself up to communications from creation. What form that takes is hard to describe because there really is no real comparison in our world. But I had once filed charges against a whole bunch of politicians and police, which went to court. And 3 years later, it was dropped when the police force assigned to reinvestigate never did anything, just sat on their hands for 3 years and let people forget. At that moment in time, the Deputy Minister of Justice called me in a public format mental. And what that means to different people is up to them to decide. Some secret societies would say that it means the mint. And the mint is where you make new coins. And it was suggested to me that I was surrounded by loonies, which is the $1 coin in Canada. And I would help convert them into toonies, 2 in 1. In fact, what I believe he was telling the insiders is that I deal through mental telepathy. That's the only English translation of basically what you're doing when you're speaking mind to mind as opposed to through words or voices. Mm-hmm. It is supposedly the method of speech of the Neanderthalers and computers below ground as well, and the reason why their mouth appears to have collapsed is both for the fact they don't eat solid food, and secondly because they don't use their mouth to speak the way we do.
And do you think these? Because I spoke to a person who claimed to be visited or something by some type of.
I'm not hearing you there.
I spoke to a person that claimed to be visited by these people, and like they said that they had they could define matter, like they can go right through matter, type of thing.
Yes, I can only tell you of my own experience, and I'm not a believer in wooey stuff. Mm-hmm. My own experience leads me to believe that from the day I was born, probably in a lab someplace and delivered to my mother, if I decipher her words correctly, from that point on, I was guided by scouts and guides the difference between a guide and a scout is a scout goes first and lays down a trail. The guide comes next and leads other people down the trail that was marked by a scout. Well, throughout my entire life, whether it be in school or in college or at work or whatever, I've had two groups of people surrounding me, and they change over time. And some were working the best they could to cause me trouble, and others were working the best they could to help me. But these are normal, everyday people as far as I can tell. Until about a year ago, there was an event on the farm here. And it was one of our supporters who was sitting down with Tommy around a campfire near the front gate and smoking dope. And people who I know to be supporters, helping me with my security that I've called the cell, came into the house and said, "Come on, you got to go with us. There's a guy at the front smoking dope, and that could very well be a setup for you to be arrested as running a place where people come to take drugs." And they took me out past the barn at the back and across some of the back fields and asked me to sit down and wait there. So there's a lot of detail that I'm not bothering with right now, but I sat down. I could hear the sound of three people talking near the fire. One was David, one was Ian, one was Tommy, and laughing, that kind of stuff. So I wasn't that far away. And it's possible, because it was past my bedtime and it was fairly warm outside, that I fell asleep. And it's possible that what I remember was a dream. But it didn't feel like a dream. Same people came back and said, "Here, get in this box." And I got into a box in what appeared to me to be a van-type vehicle. The box wasn't long enough for me to be completely stretched out. I had to tuck my knees in to be in it. But it wasn't uncomfortable either. The vehicle then drove for a distance of what could be handled in about 5 to 10 minutes. I then was brought into a house, normal bungalow-type house, normal furniture, sat in the living room with two of these people that I have known of for 20 years. And we had a chat, and the chat basically revolved around leaving the house, and I was basically told that they had taken precautions of dragging a tarp that I had used to cover a cage where I'd caught a skunk, so that the scent would throw off anybody who was following with dogs. They would not be able to smell me. And I said something to the effect, "Smell me." what about you? And the response was, they wouldn't have smelt us. So what do you mean? Well, they wouldn't have smelt us. They couldn't have seen us. They wouldn't hear us. What are you talking about? We'll deal with that some other time. We were sitting in the living room, and I remember on 2 or 3, maybe 4 occasions, because it was starting to feel chilly, and I had had a number of cups of coffee that day. I needed to go for a pee, and they said, okay, go. And I would get up, and I wouldn't be in the house. I would be in the grass. Out of a box, stand up in the grass. I recognized the area as being part of the farm. I peed on the ground, got back in the box, and all of a sudden I was in the living room again, continuing the conversation that we had started before. And this happened 3 or 4 times. And at one point, I was told, okay, you can go home now. They're gone to bed or something to that effect. Nobody came. So I got up. I was in the grass again. I say I can't swear that it wasn't a dream, but nothing about it seemed like a dream. I walked home, went to bed. In the morning, gave them proper shit and reminded them that although this is their place too, if the police came here looking and finding drugs, looking for and finding them, there would be an article in the morning paper to go along with it. And it would not even bother mentioning their names. All it would say is Glen Kealey, the president of the Canadian Institute for Political Integrity, was arrested last night for running a drug house of some kind. That would have been it. And that would have meant 20 years of work gone down the drain. Since then, Ian has not returned. Since then, David has not returned. Since then, Tommy has apologized for his role, although he said he was not taking anything except the beer.